Tim Hart with Van Dyke Mortgage is with me today. And Tim, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, Stacey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You're a top producing realtor in our area, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you. You're a great lender. So I'm looking really forward to having this conversation with you. And, we've had a major change in our Florida sales contract, the contract that is between buyers and sellers. And that impacts you. And so I wanted to just have a conversation with you and learn more about pulling back that curtain and seeing what's happening with lending and how this is affecting financing borrowers,
Mhm.
and hopefully give some good tips to other agents and buyers so that we can all get to the finish line a lot smoother.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's a good idea on your part, and it's nice to do because these contracts, especially reviewing the changes that you guys have been going through. There's a lot of them, and timelines definitely are different than they were, pre-COVID, basically. So
right.
yeah, I'm
And
happy to be here and talk about it.
the changes are huge, and I think it's all to the benefit of everyone. So I'm excited about it. They're good things. But so let's talk about what happens when you have a financing buyer and a real estate agent. We're writing up a contract, and we're financing. And I see here that you're financing with Tim. So I give Tim a call and I say, "Hey, Tim, how long is it going to take for you to get this deal closed with financing?" And I'm usually hoping to hear a short number, right?
Right, right.
So we're writing in there that we're going to have a loan approval within 30 days is the default in the contract. And in the past, on the old contract, that meant that in that first 30-day period, the buyer makes their loan application within 5 days, correct?
Mhm.
And that's still the case, but that the approval, the loan commitment, which is the lender saying to the buyer, we're going to do this loan with you, but we've still got some conditions that we may need to satisfy. That was typically 30 days, and it did not include the appraisal. And
Okay.
now the big change in the contract, which this has never been the case before, and it's huge, is that that loan approval includes a satisfactory appraisal or other valuation, whatever it is, by the lender and their requirements. And I just wanted to talk to you about that a little bit and see, does that change anything in terms of the number of days that we need to be giving for that loan approval period?
Yeah, I mean, that is a big change. And to be honest, I always wondered why the appraisal wasn't, part of the loan commitment to begin with, over the years. But with the appraisal now being part of it, y- agents and buyers and sellers need to be aware they're taking a long time. Appraisals are taking a long time. So you'll normally have, commit or approval. What would be an old commitment, right? You'll have that now almost before you even have the appraisal back. And they are taking longer in our area in Southwest Florida. It's for me, what I would suggest to agents is just what you said, where you call the lender, hey, how much time do you need? And now you also have to find out about the appraisal time, because that appraisal, especially in our crazy market we're in, and you know how it goes. We had one the other day, and most of ours have been coming in at or above the sales price. So I don't want to freak anybody out, but we had one come in. It was $55,000 under the sales price. It was like, I think 18% off,
Mm,
from the sales price. And, that type of basically bomb coming in at the end, if you're not prepared for it, could blow up your entire deal, lose your buyer's escrow. If you're not doing your proper written, you gotta put it all in writing now, right, Stacy?
yeah. So now the other big difference here is that at the end of that loan approval period, at the end of the 30 days, before it was just a deadline that passed. And if the seller wanted information about the status of the loan, we just asked. We could call, we could text, email, whatever, and we could get just the status of what it is. But now they've changed the contract too, where we can ask in advance of that loan approval period on the seller side, And if we do it in writing, which is not a text message, that's very clear in the new contract. So if we do
Email
it
those
via
writing?
email is,
Okay.
and fax is, those are electronic forms, but not text messaging. That if we request it in writing, then we'll get it, but that the buyer does not have any requirement to update us throughout the process until we get to the loan approval date. And on that date, according to the contract, they have to give written notice to the seller, letting the seller know whether or not they have gotten the loan approval. And if they don't give notice, then, and this is huge because this has never been part of the contract before, if they don't give notice, then it is assumed that they are now a cash buyer. They go from being the financing 8B, where they have the financing contingency and protection,
Mhm.
to now essentially being a cash buyer. So they lose those protections, and the seller can cancel the contract within 3 days if no notice is given, which is completely wild. And I don't think a lot of agents know that, and they're going to be caught off guard.
And then probably take the escrow money too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, if the seller cancels within the first 3 days, they let the buyer off the hook. They get their money back.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got you.
But if they continue and they haven't given notice, they have no protections under the financing contingency at all whatsoever anymore. They are as if they are a cash buyer.
Whew. That'd be a rough situation if you're an
Yeah.
FHA buyer doing 3.5% down.
Right. But I spoke with the
Maybe.
legal hotline this morning because I wanted to clarify that, and let me rewind just a second. So let's say we get to day 30, we're at the loan approval deadline, and for whatever reason, the appraisal has not come in. Then it is the responsibility of the buyer to notify the seller that either they don't want to move forward and they're canceling and getting their deposit back, or that they haven't gotten it back yet, but they do think that they're going to get loan approval and they would like to proceed. And at that time, the seller can say, okay, that's fine. And they give them grace to continue with the financing contingency protections in place. But if the buyer is silent and they say nothing, the agent says nothing, they don't deliver any written notice to the seller side, they're taking a huge risk because they could be canceled on, or they could lose those protections in that financing contingency. And in the, people think like, well, why would the seller cancel? You're already so far into the deal. But we're in a market where, after 30 days, you've got agents calling you every day saying, hey, you've been pending for a while. Do you think that deal is going to go through? Do you want a backup offer? And that could be tempting for the seller to exercise that right that they have in the contract to cancel on a buyer who's already invested money in an appraisal, in an inspection, maybe put their other house under contract, whatever.
Dominoes effect too.
Yeah.
The seller's trying to buy, they're selling their house. It just gets crazy. And the thing, to go back up for a second though, you mentioned the inspection. One thing, is it okay if I suggest something real quick?
Absolutely, please.
So what I would suggest, because us as a lender, like as soon as we get the contract in, I've had before where agents will say, don't order the appraisal until the inspection's back.
Right.
And honestly, unless an agent tells me to do that, we never do that. We've always ordered it right away.
Good.
And I would highly suggest anyone that is doing a loan with this new contract that you do not wait to order the appraisal. Get it ordered ASAP, and you might as well come to the mindset of you may have to pay for an inspection and the appraisal up front if it doesn't close.
Yeah. Or if you're one of those agents that has that policy, which I understand, to protect your client from wasting money, then you need to give a longer loan approval period. You need to give 45 days for loan approval so you can do your 15-day inspection and then have your 30 days for your normal loan period, I would imagine.
Yeah. As long as if you're going to do that, give yourself some time. You're right.
Right. So, well, is there anything that we can do as real estate agents to make this easier for you? Because you're in a situation where there are major changes to a contract that you're not a party of, even though you're a big part of the transaction. It's an agreement between a buyer and a seller, and you just have to adhere to the contract that's given to you.
Yeah, I think there's probably a few things. One is the appraisal getting ordered early, or allowing the lender to order it early. Um, I would say a couple more things would be, and we work with a lot of different agents in town, and so you see the way different agents work, right? And like we'll have some agents that it's like, here's the contract, here's every single addendum I have, here's a file contact sheet with all the, the buyer, seller, the title company, all their information there. But then there's people even go beyond that. And then, by the way, there's also agents that send us a contract and the addendum comes 3 days later and another addendum. It's like
Yeah.
we deal with them all and we love them all, by the way. Um, but what what happens though is I've seen a few agents, and this is probably going to become a little more prevalent, to where you lay out the timelines in written form, like loan commitment date, not just 30 days away, but we're filming this early November, so like December 17th, like that exact date. And what some teams like us will be able to do, if we have like that type of information is pushed out to the lender or all the parties that need to know it, a lot of people will take those dates. I think a lot of people will anyways, and put them in their calendar, or you have a system in place that will allow you to keep track of these important dates. I would also tell agents, don't rely on your lender to remember these dates. I hate to say it, but it's your contract, your buyer or your seller, and we have agents all the time that write us, before this contract with like, hey, our commitment date's coming up in 2 days. Where is it? Where is it? And they know. And then we've had other ones that just kind of, they don't, no one cares.
Right.
And so I would say make sure that you are keeping an open line with the lender and all parties involved, that they all know what the dates are coming, and probably also be patient, in the beginning. Especially the first few months, as everyone works out the kinks and gets used to the dates.
Yeah.
So, one more thing though, if you're a buyer or a seller watching this, I would not be working with how do I put it? The agents that just take a small little fee just to put you on the MLS.
Right.
Not knocking them, right? Not calling them out, but like you're gonna have an active, experienced agent that knows this contract, because when it comes time to it, Stacey, like we've been on the side of seeing buyers that potentially are going to lose $100,000 deposit, a $20,000
Yes.
deposit, 50, or they've got to they're stuck in a situation where they've got to pay cash because who knows what happens. You've been doing it long
Right.
enough. Like
Right.
crazy stuff happens. And that's a horrible situation for everyone involved. And as agents, I know they want to avoid doing that.
I think we will have some ugly situations, because in the past, okay, I mostly represent sellers with, I have listings, so I have a lot of contracts brought to me, and it's always a conversation that we have, that once you sign this contract as a seller, your hands are pretty much tied. Unless the buyer defaults in some way, you don't get to say, I want out of this contract. So now with this new contract, this is huge for me, because the seller can cancel. The seller can definitely cancel on that buyer if they don't give notice on their loan approval status. Whether they are approved or not, it's irrelevant. They did not give notice. And so, I mean, that's huge. And not that I'll encourage my sellers to start canceling contracts or anything
Right.
like that, but sometimes you're in a situation where the seller sure wishes they could have got out of it.
Mhm.
Maybe they took an offer too fast and they got better offers, or maybe they've got a buyer who it's real questionable, what they're going to do or move forward, or the seller has a change of heart. They now have an option to exercise a cancellation, and so that's something that we're adding to our transaction timeline, so that we're make sure that we understand, and when we're representing our sellers, that this is their 3-day window to exercise that. And I think a lot of buyers agents will be surprised if they're in a transaction and the seller cancels on
Yeah,
them.
yeah, definitely would have met. Well, especially if they're not up to date like you. And I've seen other, photos of agents on social media, or they're having, trainings. And So I see your board out there probably, pushing these to get everyone up to date on it, but there's going to be a lot of people that blow this stuff off,
No,
and
I had lunch with an agent yesterday who's at a no fees brokerage. She didn't even know there was a contract revision. Even though the MLS, it does pop up, I just think a lot of people aren't really paying attention. So
when does this go into effect?
it is in effect as of November 1st.
Oh boy, yeah, gotcha. See,
So in 30
we're a
days from now, we're gonna
few
have all
days in.
kinds
I
of
haven't even
craziness.
seen one yet.
Yeah, right.
Oh
So,
man. So
all right.
what's your thoughts on the appraisals though? What have you been seeing?
Um, I think that there was a period of time between like May and July, August, where things were happening at such a breakneck speed that there was such a gap between what buyers were willing to pay and what the closed transactions were showing, that there was such a gap there. But now I think that a lot of those transactions have closed and appraisers are not having as difficult of a time coming up with the sales to support it.
Uh-huh.
And so I haven't experienced that as much, but it's definitely something that sellers consider. If we're setting the mark for a highest price per square foot in the community, that we may run into an appraisal issue.
Yeah. Yeah, we're seeing the biggest. I mean, we've had a couple here and there still come in low, low being below the sales price. Of course, which our collateral underwriters will tell you, no, it's not low. That's the value. They'll tell you that,
Yeah.
which none of us want to hear, right? When we have a deal going. But we've been the biggest thing for us is time frame. These appraisers are still like, yeah, they're able to hit value a little more, but they're still swamped. So, you want another tip, Stacey? I got one
Yes.
for you.
Okay.
When the appraiser calls you, because you're the listing agent especially, I highly suggest you get their name, phone number, get all their contact information, because what happens is for someone like us, we order from an appraisal management system and we don't know who gets the order. You have your round robin of who gets them, but you don't know who does.
Right.
And there's a lot of times towards the end where everyone's like, where's the appraiser? Or where's the appraiser? Stuff like that. Or maybe, you forgot to tell them something about whatever addition or something like that. But there's always times in the very end where someone may have a question for that appraiser. So make sure you get the appraiser's contact information when they come into your listing. And if you're the
Okay.
buyer's agent, if you can get it too, it helps out
Okay.
sometimes.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great advice. I always save them in my phone book.
Yeah. Do you mark them as
Yeah.
like Bob the appraiser, Tom the
Yeah.
appraiser?
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Gotcha. Cool.
Any other tips for us?
In regards to the contract,
Working with you.
yeah, I would say if you don't have a good relationship with a lender, find one local. A lot of great lenders around here. Of course, I'm going to tell you to use me, but you should have that relationship with that lender, with that insurance company, with that title company, as part of your team. And if you don't have that, you're kind of I couldn't imagine being a buyer's agent and saying like, here, get back when you're pre-approved, or pick one of these 5. They all do an okay job. Like, I don't know. I'd rather see you just build a relationship with 1 to 2 good ones from each industry and know that they're going to perform for you.
And
That's another tip, because especially communication is going to be big when you have this new contract coming through. You're going to have everyone working together to a common goal, which is a loan closing or a transaction closing in a smooth and timely fashion with all parties happy. So we all get
right.
referrals, when it's over. That's what we
I
want to do.
always recommend local lenders because they promise the local lenders, you can sit down and look them in the white of the eyes. And those big box banks, it sounds great and wonderful, but then you can't get anyone on the phone and it is such a nightmare. So, but I'd say it's a scary thing to switch from one lender to another. And we rarely switch lenders, but when you're on the listing side and you're having contracts come to you, and I get a contract and I see that Van Dyke is the lender, I have so much confidence with it. And I know that every Tuesday you're going to be calling me and giving me an update on the loan. I don't have to call
Yeah.
you. I don't have to chase you down. So it's wonderful. I love that.
Awesome. Oh my God. We'll be pulling that out of this video if you want me to or not, and using that. So
All
thank
right.
you.
Well, you're
You
the
made
one
my
that did
life.
it.
Thank you. Yeah, I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Anytime. Thank you, Stacey. I appreciate it. Everyone, she's a great realtor. Don't forget it.
Thank
See you
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye, Stacey.